with me. I think some of the questions that I have might have been discussed, but this is your chance to go into more detail. So why don't we begin with you telling us a little bit about your background and your upbringing?
Yeah, so my father is Puerto Rican, and he's from Red Hook, which is not too far from here. And my mother's Italian and Irish, she's from Brooklyn, and they were really young, and they started having kids, and they moved to upstate New York to a really, really, really white town, and that's where I grew up. I don't want to talk shit about upstate New York, but it wasn't easy. Yeah, it wasn't easy. It was clear on top of it. So you know what I mean. It was just like, being an alien. I remember when that television show My So-Called Life came out. And there was Ricky, that Puerto Rican the lunch lady was like, "You know what?" I was like, "No."
I still watch all the marathons, but I don't think it gets any easier. Growing up from a Spanish Harlem, there's still that thing of not belonging to either, just not having a place. You actually begin the book with a quote from Plato, and I'll just read it just in case people don't remember it. It says, begins, "Now a boy is a bold, wild beast, the most difficult to manage. For by how much the more he has the fountains of prudence not yet fitted up, he becomes crafty and keen, and the most insolent of wild beasts. And on this account it is necessary to bind him as it were with many chains." And when I read this, it instantly brought to mind how much machismo, a man is man, and how boys are reared very differently. Can you speak a little bit to that and why you chose this particular quote?
Yeah. I was just reading Plato one day, as I do. That quote stood out to me. Machismo is a huge part of it. There's a lot of machismo in my home. There's a lot of machismo in the home of this book. And I think that, but there's also an absence of supervision. You know what I mean? So you take away, a certain amount of guidance from 3 boys, and they're gonna run wild. They're gonna run wild, especially when when it's expected. You know what I mean? And I think that it was expected. You know what I mean? A childhood without violence was not an option for me. You know what I mean? And whenever I showed the slightest hesitancy or nervousness about violence, it was that didn't fly. And so. And I think that I had a clear sensibility. Of course, I didn't think about it in those terms. You know what I mean? As a child, but I did have this kind of what is going on here with Whereas I think that maybe my brothers didn't question machismo in the same way that I did.
Do you feel that in your experience it was more particular to the culture, or just that's what went on in the house?
Yeah, I didn't grow up in a Puerto Rican community, but we came to Brooklyn 2 or 3 times a year, and I think that when we would go home, we would sit and be served. The men and boys would sit, and the women would be in the kitchen, and I wanted to be in the kitchen. And I was but I had to sit and be served. It is cultural. Puerto Rican culture is beautiful and wonderful. You know what I mean? And it's I don't want to talk shit about. You know what I mean? There's so much.
That's why you're here.
There's so much good for that good that's there. But there's a lot of room for thinking about gender. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot of kind of unquestioned assumptions for sure.
Seeing as how get a Latino question in there. What does it mean to be Latino today? What does it mean to be Latino?
I think that's kind of one of the wonderful things that I, discovered in my in the many kind of colleges that I dropped out of was this term Latino, because we didn't have that, you know what I mean? Like my family says they're Spanish, and we're not, or Puerto Rican, and like that, and when they say Spanish, they mean Puerto Rican, you know what I mean? And like, and even Dominicans are just like, So Latino is like, I think it's like a very, purposefully inclusive, purposefully broad term, and I think that's wonderful, you know what I mean? And like I'm very proud to, identify as like a Latino writer because, you know what I mean? It speaks to a really broad experience that, yeah.
And that was actually going to be my next question. Like, how do you feel about being labeled, under Latino?
I love it. Do it. Yeah. I mean, some people are squeamish about these things. I went to the Lamb Literary Awards, and Edward Albee, who I love his work, but he got up there and he was like, I'm not a gay writer, you know what I mean? Like I'm just a writer. It's like, you're accepting the lifetime achievement for gay writing. Not the format to raise this objection. I'm not one of those people. I'm like, I'm queer, you know what I mean? Like, whatever, I strongly identify as like working class, I mean, I'm not anymore, but, but yeah, I mean, all of those issues are important to me.
So how do you see your own role as an artist?
Yeah. I mean, what can art do? I don't know. I mean, I know that in my own life, I read books and they made me feel safer. They made me feel, I don't know, like there was a broader world out there and that maybe one day I'd get to experience it. They made me question things that I believed. If my book does any of that, then I'm hopeful. I think that the kind of ethical role that artists have is, to be honest and to make something meaningful and, but beyond that,
Do you feel that your childhood experience strengthened your identity, and how much that shaped what you write about?
I mean, obviously. I wrote a little bit about my childhood experience. Yeah, absolutely. What can I say about that? I mean, yeah. I mean, I it's like everything that I want to say about my childhood experience, is in that book. I had to write that book. It's hard for me to say simple things about it because one of the things that happened to me was I would talk to people about my childhood experience. I would talk to people about growing up in a mixed race home, growing up, teenage parents, yada yada, this or that, and people would give back to me this kind of adult language, this therapeutic language, dysfunction, abuse, yada yada yada, and even terms like oppression, you know what I mean? That I was just like, those, aren't specific enough, you know what I mean? Like there was so much wonder in my childhood, there was so much magic in my childhood, there was, and it's hard for me to talk about it in in a strictly politicized way without talking about it in a kind of artful and beautiful way too. So that's kind of why I had to write the book. Yeah.
How did you find the courage
Yeah, I don't know. Am I that courageous? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
It's a very powerful, it's very raw and beautiful, and it tells a lot about you.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely was, somebody asked, what I was afraid of, and I definitely had fears, but mostly about exposing other people. I don't know. I just spent too much time, not, it's too much time being ashamed to, not be, it doesn't seem courageous to me now to just, yeah, this is me, this is who I am, this will happen,
So tell us a little bit about the narrative of With Animals and
Pops. What more do you need?
What's your name, Mom?
Yeah. He's nameless, I think, because I really wanted to draw attention to like the we, you know, and the I, and like those were kind of the only names I wanted you to have. You know what I mean? Because I wanted the reader to pay attention to like when is his name we and when is his name I and why. You know what I mean? Why is he included in this moment? Why does he feel excluded in that moment? So, you know, and just kind of like a universal entry point. It was important to me to leave him a name. And all of the characters, I was trying to make myth out of family. So I wanted, you know, Pops to be Pops in like this mythic way. You know what I mean? He's just Pops. You know what I mean? And there's not too much of a specific identity to anybody in this book. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I mean, like Zeus is always Zeus. You know, when you read a myth, you know, it's like there are certain qualities, like he's not going to be like super complicated, you know, and like Zeus comes in and you're like, oh, Zeus is here, it's going to throw a thunderbolt, you know? And I wanted the same kind of thing with Pops, and you know what I mean? To kind of make it universal as much as possible. Certainly, and the separation, you know what I mean? The vast separation. I mean, one of the lines is like, "Who saw what separated him from us?" And I think that, you know, they're separated from the kids in the book are separated from their parents, from both their parents. You know what I mean? They've both kind of been uprooted, you know, and they're in upstate New York. It's not their place. You know what I mean? And it's kind of the kids' place, But specifically, I think because it is a white town, the Puerto Rican, you know, Puerto Rican-ness of the father, you know what I mean, the darkness, you know what I mean, the dancing, the fact that Spanish is his first language, you know what I mean, captures their imagination in this intense